This is the J. Scott Outdoors podcast on Western big game hunting and fishing, brought to you by GoHunt.com Insider. Research faster, hunt more. Go to GoHunt.com/insider and use the J. Scott promo code when signing up to receive a $50 KUIU gift card. I'm your host, J. Scott, and I live and breathe hunting and fishing, spending half the year in the field experiencing God's creation. I hope you'll enjoy hearing about our adventures. Guys, welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today is February 10th, Wednesday, and I'm headed to the Western Hunting and Conservation Expo tomorrow morning. I will be at the expo there in Salt Lake City, Utah, Thursday and Friday, and have a flight out late Friday night. And I want to invite anyone out there that's listening to look me up. Look forward to meeting a bunch of listeners up there and getting to see a great expo, a bunch of great mounts, apply for a few tags. They do hunt drawings, and it's going to be an exciting time up there. Last week I was in Las Vegas. Dar and Hunter Haynes and I went over to Las Vegas and went to the SCI convention, and it was an awesome convention. It's really cool to walk the aisles there and look at all the different animals that are hunted all over the world. And just about the time that you get thinking that what you're doing is very important, and you're getting focused on the animals that we hunt here in the West, you realize that there's a whole nother world out there, and there's people looking forward to hunting all the animals that are indigenous to their areas as well. And it's just great to see hunting worldwide, and great to get together with a big group of hunters that all have a common goal and common things that they like. So that was awesome. I look forward to the Western Hunting and Conservation Expo, and I've been hearing a lot about this show for many years. And actually, I had reservations at the Opryland Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee, to go to the National Wild Turkey Federation convention, which I went to last year. And I'm a turkey nut, so I really enjoy the NWTF convention. But I just canceled those reservations and actually felt compelled to go to this Western Hunting Expo up in Salt Lake City. So if you're going to be up there, look me up. It should be a good time, and I look forward to that. Guys, I wanted to cover a few questions and a few comments, and I literally have hundreds to go through, but I'll just cover a few here. And I really appreciate all the feedback that I get from you guys. You can email me at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com with any questions or any comments or any type of feedback, and I'll do my best to. I always try and answer my emails immediately. I try and answer my voicemails, my text messages. So feel free to message me, and I look forward to interacting with you guys, the listeners. Says, this is from Ty. He says, "Hi, I've seen you posted on your blog, jscottoutdoors.com, that Global Star sat phone in a picture on top of some Swarovskis. Would you recommend that sat phone?" Ty, the answer is yes. I use the Global Star 1700 GSP. I use it pretty much everywhere I go. I actually am an ambassador for Global Star, and I use the Spot device, and I also use the Global Star sat phone. And one of the things that I like about the Global Star sat phone is you have crystal clear service. I had the same GSP 1700 phone, say 10, 11, 12 years ago. And while I still had clear service, you would lose calls very often. And Global Star actually came in and spent close to $1 billion renovating and updating all of their satellites. And so I would say the service now compared to 10 years ago is actually unbelievable. I was in Mexico for 2 weeks hunting Coues deer. My partner and I did our Colburn with Colburn and Scott Outfitters, and we were able to call home all the time, throughout the day, throughout the night. And, I would be on the conversation at sometimes, 10, 15 minutes and had really crystal clear service. If you compare that to some of the other sat phones out there, the other phone, Iridium, Iridium has some positives and negatives. One of the negatives that I see is when you're actually talking, when you're the person receiving the call from the sat phone or you're on the other end of the line, there's like a slight delay and echo, and it almost sounds like the person that's on the sat phone is like drunk. It's got kind of a weird sound. And that's one reason why I like Global Star much better. It just sounds like you're, right next door or on your cell phone. I mean, it's just great service. So hope that answers your question. George, as a fairly new hunter, I'd like to personally thank you for the services you provide in your podcast. I just got off the phone with the guys from the Outdoorsmans. They gave me some advice that I was wondering about for a long time. And if it wasn't for your podcast, I'd still be wondering. Again, thank you. Keep up the good work, George. George, thank you for the email. Yes, the guys over at the Outdoorsmans, Cody Nelson and his staff, do a phenomenal job of informing hunters. And, I saw them up at the SCI convention, and I'll see them here in the next couple days in Utah at the Western Hunting Expo, and stop in and talk to those guys. They really know their optics. They know their business well. Interesting story about that is I have a friend who had purchased a pair of binoculars, and we were just about ready to go on our trip down to Mexico. And I think it was 2 days before, it was several days before he broke his binoculars, and he was in a pickle. So I know that he called up Cody at the Outdoorsmans, and Cody took care of him. Actually, Cody lent him a pair of his binoculars to take down on the trip. And, you can buy binoculars from a lot of places in my mind, but to have that personal touch and that customer service where, something goes wrong, there's really nothing you can do. I mean, the manufacturer's, far enough away that there's not, there's no way they can send you a pair in time. And not that Cody's going to do that every time, but it's just one example of having that personalized relationship with someone, really helps. And the Outdoorsmans, I've been going down and buying optics from the Outdoorsmans for many years, probably close to 20 years. And having that personal relationship with the guys that you buy your hunting equipment, I think is so important. Thank you, George, for your question. Let's see. Jay, I found your podcast the other day and it seemed impressive. Thanks for what you do. Quick question about calling in elk. What do you use in August and early September before the rut? Do cow calls work? And if so, what kind of cadence do you use? This is from David E. And David, I would say that depending on where you're hunting, if you're in Colorado or anywhere across the West, to be honest with you, yes, calls can work. I think you're going to have to make herd sounds and kind of build curiosity, maybe in those bulls. I don't know that my cadence is any different than, say, it would be during the rut, but I definitely think a lot more, just kind of bugling and, cows talking back and forth. And so that bull that you're trying to call to, that's probably going to come in silent. But actually, if you can kind of cause a little bit of a ruckus, those bulls up on the hill will probably think, well, man, what's going on down there? And they'll come down and check it out. Now, cow calls, in my opinion, and soft nasally calls that bulls use also work. They communicate with each other every single day. So, keep in mind that the elk, while in the rut, you tend to hear them bugling and you tend to hear them, more vocal. We also tend to be in the woods a lot more during the rut, so you just feel like they call more during the rut. I would say yes, they bugle, but the cows and calves are communicating with each other at all times of the year, every single day. Hope that answers your question. Okay, let's see. This is from Steve. Hi, Jay. I wanted to say I love the podcast. It really gets me daydreaming when I listen. Haha. Lots of very helpful information and has really helped me understanding maximizing my hunting opportunities. You always say to shoot you a message with questions or topics we'd like to see covered in the podcast. I was hoping that at some point you could cover the topic of hunting across the border in Mexico. I really want to understand the feasibility for the average guy to hunt south of the border, guided, unguided, land access, tags, the works. I know you hunt often in Mexico and would love to hear about the topic from an expert. Another topic I would like to hear about or learn about would be tags and point maximization on a budget. Thanks again for the podcast. Really enjoy it. Keep up the good work, Steve. Steve, to answer your question, actually, episode 98, travel tips for Coues deer hunting in Mexico, actually was an episode that I did back on December 18th. You might check that out. And also episode 102, when I talked with my partner Dar Colburn about preparation for Mexico Coues deer hunt. Both of those episodes ought to help you on that first question. And absolutely, I think we should answer your request about tags and point maximization on a budget. I think that would be a good topic. Guys, I love these kind of comments, like the one from Steve. He's asking for specific things, and that helps me kind of hone in and focus on what you guys want to hear. So thanks, Steve, for that question. Let's see. Jay, thanks for providing so much information for free. I felt that my hunting game has improved dramatically from listening to your podcast. I feel I still have a lot to improve on, so I was hoping with shed season fast approaching that you could speak with an avid shed hunter and get us some tips and tactics and things to look for. Again, thanks for all you do. Blake, that's a great recommendation, and I'll try and get someone on here to talk about shed hunting for sure. Jay, first off, I'd like to say thanks for the podcast. I love it. Appreciate all the great info you pass along to us listeners. Keep up the great work. Just curious if the discount code still works for the outdoorsmans. I couldn't recall what episode I heard that on and what the code was. I thought this would be the easiest way to find out. I'm looking to add another tripod to the collection. Thanks, AJ. AJ, yes, the code still does work. All you have to do is call the Outdoorsmans at 1-800-291-8065. Use the J Scott promo code, and you will receive that 10% discount. Hey, Jay, I heard in your podcast that you went to Grand Canyon University. When were you there? I was there from 96 to 2000. Thank you so much for the podcast. I love it and value it. Yes, to answer your question, I was at Grand Canyon University. I graduated from high school here in Phoenix in 1991. I had a short stint at Abilene Christian University in Texas for one semester and missed the Arizona sun. About November, the wind was blowing sideways and sleet and snow. And at the time, I was a golfer and really into golf, and it just wasn't a good fit for me. So I came back to Arizona and I enrolled at Grand Canyon University and played on and off for 3 years of golf on the Grand Canyon University golf team. Was usually a struggling fifth fifth team member on the team. They only traveled 5 guys, and I made a few tournaments, but was somewhat a mediocre college golfer. But really enjoyed my time at Grand Canyon University. I actually ended up, I think I had 18 hours left after my golf eligibility was over with, and I actually finished my degree at Arizona State University and graduated. I want to say I graduated the December of 1995. Um, yeah, I enjoyed my time at Grand Canyon University. It was a very small school when I went there. Now they've got a huge, they've expanded the campus and have a bunch of new buildings. They have a new gymnasium, new coliseum. None of that was there. And we go there for some Christian music concerts from time to time, and it's great to see Grand Canyon doing so well. Thanks for the question. Hey Jay, thanks for the podcast. I was wondering if you could have John McClendon on the podcast. I think a lot of people would like to hear from him. Stephen, yes, John McClendon and I have talked about him being on the podcast, and he is more than willing to come on the podcast. I've twisted his arm a little bit. He's a soft-spoken, humble guy and someone that I've looked up to for a long time. But he has agreed to come on. We just have not got our schedules together. I want to talk with him about some of the giant bulls and some of the different animals that he has harvested with clients or personally. And he's definitely on the list to have here on the podcast. So hopefully in the next couple months we can make that happen. Guys, thank you so much for your questions. I'll continue to try and answer some of these questions on the podcast, and I think you guys will get a kick out of some of these. These are just a few of hundreds of questions that I get, and I try and respond to every single question immediately. So feel free to email me at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. I wanted to remind you about the Go Hunt Insider giveaway for the month of February. 6 insiders will win Outdoorsman's tripods and tripod heads with a total value of over $5,000. All you have to do is be an insider member to be entered into the drawing. Drawings will take place at the end of each month. Winners will be contacted by email and have 3 days to claim their prize. Previous giveaways, January, there were 40 insider members that won a $100 gift certificate to Double Tap Ammunition with a value of $4,000. December, 5 insider members won a pair of Zeiss Conquest binoculars with a total value of $5,000. November, there were 10 insiders. They each won a Kuiu pack system with a value of $4,500. October, 2 insiders won a fully guided Coues deer hunt with a retail value of $13,000. That was actually with Dar Colburn and myself at Colburn and Scott Outfitters in Sonora, Mexico. And I am happy to report that both of the Go Hunt Insider members shot very nice Coues deer. Both of them scored 103 inches. Both hunters, one was from Pennsylvania and one was from Denver, Colorado, both first-time Coues deer hunters, and it was great to spend time with them out there hunting Coues deer, and they had a great time. Guys, there's a list here. September, 15 insider members won Sunto watches. 10 insider in August won Kuiu sleeping bags. In July, they gave away four landowner tags in 4 weeks, elk, mule deer, and antelope. And then, of course, the big Dall sheep hunt giveaway in June. So, guys, if you're not already a Go Hunt Insider member, you should be. They give away great gear and great hunts every single month, not to mention their the Insider, the Filtering 2.0 system, and the draw odds and all the strategy articles are phenomenal on the Go Hunt. It's a phenomenal resource. They actually just today released their application strategies for Utah sheep, moose, goat, and bison. 2 days ago, they released the application strategy for the Utah elk and antelope. And before that, just a few days ago, the Arizona elk and antelope draw was due, and the application strategy was spot on. On the Go Hunt Insider, the draw odds portion of the Filtering 2.0 is fantastic, and I've been really poring over it on the Utah applications that are coming up, and it coincides perfectly with the last two episodes with Adam Bronson talking about Utah big game, and then today's episode with Trail Kreitzer is the Go Hunt Insider just falls right in place with these two episodes as well. I'm going to have a two-part series here with Trail talking specifically about Utah elk and going through each unit and talking about what kind of bulls to expect for each unit. We talk about point levels and what have you. So it's going to be a great two-part series. And guys, I just want to really thank you for listening to the podcast. Thank you for all your support. You can follow along our adventures at JScott Outdoors on Instagram, on our website, jscottoutdoors.com. We have a YouTube channel, JScott Outdoors, and of course on Facebook. And Dara and I really appreciate your support. And let's get right to the episode with Trail Kreitzer. Now, remember, the Utah big game applications are due March the 3rd, and I believe March 17th is the deadline for just putting in for preference points. So let's get right to this episode. Wilderness Athlete is committed to improving the health and quality of life for the outdoor athlete by providing field-tested, scientifically validated nutrition and sports performance products. Check them out at wildernessathlete.com and use the JScott promo code to receive 10% off any order in February 2016. Utah Hydrographics is in the water transfer printing service, and they are open to whatever you can dream up. Choose from a wide range of camo patterns, designs, and colors. Whether it's guns, bows, tools, rifle stocks, vehicles, steering wheels, fenders, dashboards, paint guns, fishing rods, cups, tripods, watches, knife grips, helmets for a local sports team or for your motorcycle, picture frames, mailbox, animal skulls, you name it, they can probably do it. Utah Hydrographics loves taking things that are general looking and turns them into something that looks fantastic and eye-popping. Give them a call and see what they can do for you and receive up to a 10% discount by using the JScott16 promo code. Visit them at utahhydrographics.com or on Instagram at Utah Hydrographics. Welcome to the JScott Outdoors podcast. Today we've got a special guest, Trail Kreitzer.
There you go.
And Trail Kreitzer is from Utah, and I'm excited to talk to Trail today about all things Utah and a little bit about his Arizona elk hunt. Trail, how you doing?
Doing good. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Trail, why don't you give the listeners a little bit of a background on yourself and what led you to the point where you're at now?
So I'm from southern Utah. I live here in Cedar City. Currently, I'm a habitat biologist. I work for the Division of Wildlife. I grew up actually in the area. I grew up in a little teeny tiny town called Anemone, which is just over the mountain, maybe an hour or so. My dad was a park ranger at Otter Creek State Park, so I got to grow up right across from the street from the reservoir. You know, we had TV, but didn't really have any channels or anything, so I basically grew up in the outdoors. My closest neighbor lived a mile down the road, so it was pretty rural, sheltered upbringing, but a good upbringing. I had the privilege of growing up right in the heart of some of the best mule deer and elk country in Utah. Right out my front door, I had the Boulder to the east. I had Mount Dutton just behind me to the west, and then the south end of the Monroe just right there. So I had the opportunity to hike and hunt all over those units, and I guess that's how I got hooked. My dad was an avid hunter. He moved out here from Indiana when he was in his 20s, he and my mom, and he moved out here primarily for, hunting and fishing opportunities. So it's in my blood, and I, that's how I came to be here. I appreciate you having me on today. But yeah, that's basically.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun today. First, I'd like to ask you about the habitat in Utah and some of the habitat restoration work that goes on there in southern Utah. What have you been involved with, and kind of what is on the charts there in southern Utah for habitat restoration?
Yeah. So I work for the Division of Wildlife. I'm a habitat biologist, and my job is to work with my federal counterparts since they own the bulk of the land here in southern Utah. We have a lot of public lands, both BLM and Forest Service. We have quite a bit of state lands too. So my job is to work with those guys to develop habitat restoration projects. And Utah, we're unique in that we have a partnership that we developed around 10 years ago. And we call that the Utah Watershed Restoration Initiative. And what we do is it's a partnership between those different agencies. And what it allows us to do is to pool our money and our resources and do larger landscape scale projects. So we do everything from large mastication, mostly pinyon juniper work in mule deer winter range, and we do fire rehab. We do large scale chaining. If you see the hand crews out there, guys, with those chainsaws that are out cutting pinyon and juniper, those types of trees. So we do those kind of projects. We've done probably close. I think the figure is 1 million acres in Utah in the last 10 years. Out of our region, just this last year, we'll have done close to 30,000 acres. And a lot of that is in mule deer winter range. A lot of it is stuff on the Paunsaugunt. We've done a bunch of bull hog mastication work over there to improve range conditions. We've done a lot of work on the Zion unit. We've done a lot of work on the beaver unit. Just about every unit here in southern Utah, we've been involved with doing some large landscape scale projects. And it's taken, probably 5 or 10 years to really start to see the benefits of those. But I think just looking at our mule deer herds, it seems like they're starting to bounce back. Our elk herds are, almost all these units in southern Utah are at or above objective. And it just seems to be that we're seeing some fruits of our labor. So yeah, that's my background. That's what I do for my day job.
Awesome. I've got a question for the listeners that aren't very familiar on the benefits of that work that you're talking about doing. Specifically, how does it benefit mule deer specifically, and then maybe into the elk?
Yeah, so, for mule deer, if you look back at the history of mule deer, we had a boom, especially here in Utah and really across the western United States in the 50s and 60s. And if you look back at the history and what was going on prior to those booms, you look at the fire history and see that we had really massive amounts of fire back in the 20s, 30s, 40s. We were burning millions of acres, and then we went down to basically just burning a couple million or even hundreds of thousands. And mule deer are they're an early successional species. They do really well on that first growth, and then as that shrub develops, you get kind of an uneven age class stand of shrubs of some of the old and some of the new, and that's where mule deer seem to do really well on. And that's what we're trying to mimic. Burning anymore is really tough to pull off on large landscapes. It's also, back then we probably weren't dealing with the invasive species like cheatgrass that we are now. And burning, it's tough to pull off. So what we're trying to do is mimic those changes that maybe fire, did back in the early, 20s and 30s and 40s. And so what we're doing is we're going in, and a lot of our work, like I said, is in mule deer winter range. And a lot of our winter ranges across the West have been taken over by pinyon and juniper. And what that does is those trees come in, they outcompete the grasses and the forbs and the browse species like sagebrush and bitterbrush. And they basically overtake those landscapes, and they force those good desirable species out, and they're become predominantly just pinyon and juniper, which, it's good for cover, but as far as a food source and forage, it really offers real minimal benefits for mule deer. So what we're trying to do is eliminate those trees. What we try to do is design projects that are a mosaic of treatment areas. So we want to leave enough cover for the mule deer, but we also want to cut pieces out of that, knock holes in that country to allow for seeded species. And usually when we do a project, almost always, we'll go through and we'll seed those projects first, and then we'll actually do the treatment. So if it's a bull hog, like a mastication treatment where we're going to go through and we're going to shred those trees, we'll seed first. And then after we shred those, that mulch layer creates a layer of duff, which allows that seed to retain moisture in the soil and allows them to grow and do well. And it also kind of blocks out those invasive species that you don't want. So that's what we're doing for mule deer. Chaining, the same kind of thing. That was real popular back in the late 70s and 80s. They did a lot of chaining. They didn't do a lot of reseeding with it. But now we're focusing on our efforts on doing reseeding, trying to reestablish good forbs, good browse for mule deer. So, that's...
And Trail,
yeah.
Where do you guys get the money? Where do the funds come from primarily to do all of this work?
Okay. So, like I said, it's a partnership program we have with our federal agencies. So a lot of money comes from BLM or Forest Service Fuels. It also comes through our Habitat Council, which is the Utah Division of Wildlife portion of those projects. Every permit that's sold in the state of Utah, portion of that goes back into Habitat, and it's allocated through our group internally, which is called the Habitat Council. And then a lot of the money comes from sportsmen's groups, Sportsmen for Fish and Wildlife, Mule Deer Foundation, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, FNAWS. So those kind of groups, put money back into those projects too. So all those sources pooled into one larger pool, we're able to do, bigger projects that affect larger acres. So.
Awesome. And with all of the habitat work that's being done, one animal that we haven't talked about is how does it impact the turkeys, and what have you seen as far as the turkeys? How are they doing lately with all of this work that you guys have been doing?
Turkeys? Yeah, they seem to be doing pretty good. We do a lot of riparian areas, a lot of river corridors. We do treatments through there to eliminate pinyon and juniper, which they can suck up a lot of water. So in turn, what we do is we'll go back through and we'll plant cottonwoods and other, willows and things like that. So it helps them there. It also, we've done a lot of work in transplanting turkeys into areas. We've done, that regrowth of vegetation from these treatments is good for turkeys. Provides seeds. It provides, areas for invertebrates, bugs and stuff for turkeys. So it's done well. It's done good.
Awesome.
Turkey populations are doing really well in Utah. I heard this morning from one of the other biologists here that they've actually just trapped 130 some from a residential area down here south of town and moved them out back into habitat where people can hunt them and enjoy them. So, but yeah, populations are doing good.
How long will it take those birds to figure out they've been relocated and wander back to town, I wonder?
I don't know. I'm hoping they're moving them out into areas that they can call home, feel happy. But yeah, turkeys are doing well in Utah for sure.
For sure. I wanted to talk to you kind of in length today about Utah, and the application period is now open, and I want to say the deadline is coming up. What is it, here in March?
Yeah, March 3rd.
March 3rd. And so we've got quite a lot to talk about in regards to the different big game animals in Utah. Before we get to that, I wanted to ask you had just recently drawn a Arizona archery elk permit in Central Arizona unit, and I was curious what your thoughts were coming over to Arizona, and how the hunt went, and a little bit about your experience there.
Yeah, I drew an archery permit. It was a late season archery permit, so that November season. In talking to people, I guess a lot of people are intimidated, by that hunt, but just because it's primarily a spot and stock, or maybe intimidated is not the word, but maybe just, not looking forward to it like you would a typical archery rut hunt for elk. But for me, hunting elk in Utah, our season starts in August and it generally ends, mid-September. So you may catch a little bit of rut action But primarily you're hunting elk that are on summer range, moving into kind of a transition of rut. But a lot of the hunting that I've done in Utah is spot and stock. It's ambush. It's, sitting wallows and water holes. So when I looked at Arizona and I saw that you guys had some late season archery hunt opportunities and that the odds were pretty good, I thought, that might be right up my alley. So I looked at trophy potential. I saw there's some units down there in Arizona that have really good trophy potential that also offer that late season archery hunt where the odds are really good. And so I applied, and I don't know, people would probably be upset. I had no points, which this unit that I drew, it's not tough to draw, but I had no points going into that draw. And I drew the permit, it was good for me because I had kind of a rough year as far as the draw goes. I thought for sure I'd draw my usual deer tag here in Utah, and I hadn't. And I'd expected to potentially draw a mountain goat tag here in Utah, and I hadn't drawn it. And so this late season archery hunt in Arizona was kind of my last hope. But
I think you emailed me after the draw, and you and I haven't actually met, and I said, "You drew what tag?"
Yeah.
And you told me, and I was like, why did you do that to yourself? And
Yeah.
Of course you probably laughed, that guy's a jerk, I'll never talk to him again, and off you went and you shot a great bull.
Yeah, no, I remember I talked to you one night. You were headed out to dinner with your wife, so I don't think you had much time to visit, but you offered some information to me, and I think
I might have said I wouldn't have wished that hunt on my worst enemy, I think was my exact words, but maybe not quite that harsh.
If you get to know me, I'm a little bit of a sucker for punishment for that kind of stuff. I like that kind of challenge. I had a late season cow tag here in Utah probably 2-3 weeks ago, and I actually ended up snowshoeing in and shooting a cow. So not too many people do that for a cow elk, but I don't know. I like that kind of stuff. So yeah, when I talked to you and you said, hey, why would you do that? I don't know. I guess it fired me up even that much more to kind of see what I could do. But
you said, I'll show him. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I'll prove to him that I can do it. And yeah, I remember that distinctly. So I apologize for that, I'm glad you were able to capitalize. Let's take a quick break here to hear from our sponsors, and then I want to ask you about the hunt.
At GoHunt.com, we are committed to being the best at what we do, and we take pride in putting ourselves in the customer's boots. The old way wasn't working, so we came up with a new way to give you access to the best draw odds you'll find anywhere. Our dedicated team of data scientists and hunters have gathered information from all over the western United States to provide you with the most accurate odds ever. Select a state, the species you're looking to hunt, the season you're looking to hunt, and even compare the probability of drawing to other units. You'll be given the most reliable draw odds in the industry, period. So don't let your boots get stuck in the mud. There's a new way of doing things. Visit GoHunt.com/insider and join the movement.
Use the JScott promo code when signing up and receive a $50 KUIU gift card. Since 1982, the Outdoorsman's in Phoenix has made it their goal to provide the very best customer service combined with the latest and greatest optics and accessories in the business. Outdoorsman's is the leading designer and manufacturer of high-quality tripods and mounting accessories for any hunter's optical needs. Go to outdoorsmans.com or call 1-800-291-8065 and use the JScott promo code until February 28th to receive 10% off all Outdoorsman's packs and pack accessories.
Okay, so you draw this tag. You really don't know what to expect. Were you able to come down and do a bunch of scouting, or tell me how you prepared for it and how you executed your plan?
I didn't have any time to scout. I was so busy through the summer, and I thought I would get some time prior to the hunt, but I just didn't get time to get down there. So what I did is I made a ton of phone calls. Like I said, I called you. I cruised any kind of hunting forum that I could find online, just running searches for the unit, and I ended up talking to a guy. I think he was from Payson, and he'd been in the unit quite a bit, and he ended up giving me some ideas. One of the things that I do typically when I go into an area, basically blind, is start to do research onto I use the Go Hunt Insider thing, of course, but what I started to research burn areas, which I've just had such good luck hunting burn areas, and I knew especially for that hunt it would be key, just because it would be open enough that I could spot and stalk, and I knew that the elk, especially late season, those bulls would probably pull off into some of those burns to get feed. And so that's where I started my research, was just looking into burn scars. And I did that by scouting Google Earth. I did it by looking at different fire websites. I talked to the Forest Service, probably giving away too much information here. But anyway, yeah, I talked to a bunch of people, as many people as I could, as many natural resource managers and those type of people as I could. And I just kind of went at it blind. I had an area circled on Google Earth after all the research that I had done that I thought would be productive, and I just started there. So my dad was nice enough. I hadn't had a chance to hunt with my dad much. I bow hunted with him on the Beaver back in 2002, and my dad was nice enough to come down with me and just kind of, be my camp mate and take care of camp and kind of hang out with me. And we came down and we had a good hunt.
That's awesome. What was the weather like for the hunt? And when you had your kind of preconceived ideas, searching through Google Earth and talking to all your contacts, when you actually stepped foot in the unit and drove in, I mean, were there things that were, strikingly odd and, out of place, or did you feel like you could kind of hit the ground running?
Yeah. So I was a little bit surprised. Everybody I talked to said, yeah, it's really thick. I mean, there's a lot of vegetation. It's tall. There's a lot of undergrowth. There's a lot of ponderosa pine. It's thick. It's hard to see. Certainly be hard to get an arrow through at an animal. And I'd heard that, and I've heard people say that about different units here in Utah. And I have to admit, when I got down there, I was awfully surprised at how thick it was, and how much vegetation and just how hard it was going to be to potentially get an arrow into a bull. I was surprised by that. The other thing that kind of surprised me was, we got down there and the weather was pretty good for the first couple days. As far as the area that I identified, I got down there one day early. And I got there in time to get out that morning in glass, and I drove to an overlook that I'd found on Google Earth that I thought would be good. And within the first probably 30 seconds of throwing my binoculars up, I had 7 bulls. And so, that was great. It was good to know that I was in an area that were some elk and that I'd found elk, and 3 of those bulls were actually pretty good. So that was good. I was able to hit the ground running. But yeah, I mean, I was surprised a little bit at how much pressure there was. There's a lot of tags. I found that on the weekends there was a lot of pressure, and during the weeks not so much. The weather surprised me a little bit. The third day it started to rain, and it rained hard, and the worse it got, I just thought, I don't want to get wet and be able to hunt for the rest of the week. And so we actually did stay one night in a hotel, and the rain turned to snow that night. And I made it back. We went back into the unit just because I thought, hey, I'm okay to hunt with snow, and I'm okay with cold weather camping as long as I'm just not all wet, But it did get cold. It got down into the teens. I think at one point it was, like 13 degrees, and we probably had, 3 or 4 inches of snow. So I was surprised that Arizona could throw that kind of weather at me, I guess. At least in central Arizona.
So I got one question to bounce back. You said you had prepared on Google Earth.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of a Google Earth junkie as well. I mean, do you go as far as, labeling stuff on, glassing points on Google Earth? Kind of walk me through your Google Earth prep. And I'm curious to see if it's anything like what I do, and see if we have any similarities there.
Yeah, so I'm probably the same. I go through and I drop pins, GPS points on, any area that I think is glassable. I look at, for that hunt, I was looking at, like I said, any kind of burn or any kind of deep nasty pocket that I thought a big late season bull could hole up in. I was looking for glassing points that I could look into those areas. So yeah, I'm dropping pins on those. Any kind of water hole, I'd heard that hunt can be real good if it's dry, that you can sit water and do well. So any kind of water hole, especially off in those wilderness areas, I was labeling those and then, moving those over to my GPS unit. So I use that tilt pan feature on Google Earth. I'm always, looking at areas from different sides, trying to see, which would be better to glass in the morning based on where the sun comes up, or which would be better in the evening. So yeah, I'm probably using it real similar to you are. I think Google Earth's a pretty amazing tool. I mean, for scouting an area. It's like I said, I'd come up with one area that I thought was my best chance, the area that I thought that was most likely to hold bulls, and when I got there, I found 7 bulls within the first 20 minutes or something. So it worked out really well.
I use Google Earth a lot, and it sounds like we have similar styles. One thing is that you said there that perked my interest is I do not transfer my Google Earth waypoints from Google Earth to my GPS or to I use the Trimble Outdoors app, and I also have the onX. I'm curious, is it easy to transfer Google Earth waypoints right onto your GPS or onto your onX, or what do you use?
Yeah, it's fairly easy. I use a program called DNR Garmin, which was developed by, at least the one I use is out of Minnesota, the Department of Natural Resources up there. They have a program that you can download to your computer. And you basically just hook your GPS to your computer. You open this DNR Garmin program. It will recognize your GPS, and then you can drag and drop those waypoints into there, and it'll transfer. You can upload them to your GPS. So it's fairly easy.
Does it? If you name them certain, do the names transfer over? Because it seems like when I've done it before, that the waypoints transfer over, but like not what I actually named them.
Yeah. Usually when in that program, that DNR Garmin program, you have a window there where you can add a name into it before it loads, and you can do it that way. And that's how I've done it. I do a lot of, when I do habitat restoration projects, when I design those projects, I end up doing a lot of those in Google Earth so that you can, use that tilt pan feature and kind of, work the topography basically, and I end up taking a lot of those shape files that I create in Google Earth and then importing them into ArcMap, which is the program we use for those kinds of projects. So
gotcha.
Yeah, it works pretty good. I use the onX hunt maps, also the chip in my GPS, and that had a lot of water holes, a lot of points of interest on it too, but where I can see it on Google Earth and then transfer it over into my GPS, I know it's there. I feel good about it.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm kind of the same way. So I've already learned something here from this episode, and I need to dive in and really figure out how to transfer it over to my phone, either on Trimble Outdoors or on onXmaps, and transfer it over to my GPS. So that's all great stuff. So you're off and running with 7 bulls, and then kind of walk me through, and then we'll get to the Utah stuff. Walk me through, how long it took you to get your bull and what have you.
Okay. So I glassed up those bulls the first morning. One of them was a bull that I really wanted to get a better look at, and so that afternoon, this is the day before the opener, I threw everything in my backpack, and I piled off into this big canyon. And I spent the night down in there, and the next morning I got up, and my dad was, glassing for me back from the main point where we'd seen these bulls the morning that morning before. And I got up and I saw some elk, but I didn't see the same bulls, and I ended up actually looking back up underneath the rim, and I saw 3 bulls together, and I got the scope on one of them, and one was, it was a legit, 370 kind of bull. So I was really excited. Opening morning, I saw this bull. He was in a real stockable spot. I watched him for probably an hour and a half. Ended up watching him walk down into some pinyon juniper, and I actually saw him bed. So I was really excited about it. And I thought, I've got 10 days to hunt this bull. This is a dead bull. So anyways, I planned to stalk on him. I got on the stalk. He's probably a mile and a half away. I got up to where I thought I needed to begin to make a loop on him. I could still see him bedded, and from, you know, a little bit of elevation looking down on him, I looked down and I could see two guys working out ahead of me. And, you know, as luck would have it, those guys were probably, you know, 10 minutes out ahead of me working the same stock that I was. And I thought, well, you know, they're out ahead of me. I'll just let them go. So I climbed up on a ridge where I thought this bull might use for an escape route. And I actually got to watch this guy sneak in and shoot this bull. So,
wow.
I was a little gutted the first day, you know, to have that bull. You know, it went from extreme high to extreme low to thinking, hey, here's a great bull that I can hunt for the rest of my hunt, to, you know, watching this guy harvest it. But it was neat. I mean, I got to watch these two guys. I was watching him through my spotting scope, and I got to watch him, you know, actually kill this bull. And I got to watch that, you know, that moment when he walked down to a bull, and he was a great bull, you know, just to see, you know, to see somebody else, you know, live their dreams. It was pretty cool, but at the same time, I was a little gutted, to be honest. So, yeah, I threw everything in my backpack, and I headed back to the top of the ridge, and you know, talked to my dad and kind of regrouped, and we ended up hunting that area for a couple more days, and then just, you know, we were seeing some bulls. I wasn't seeing anything that was, you know, they really wanted to hang a tag on that early in the hunt. I had the whole hunt off of work, and so I was planning to hunt right up till Thanksgiving Day. So I actually ended up moving after that little snowstorm and the rain. We actually ended up moving farther to the west in the unit, and I hunted another area, and after looking at that area, I saw a lot of bulls. One morning I ended up seeing I think I saw 22 or 23 bulls, so it was over 20, and I remember there were some good bulls in it, but looking at that country and just how thick it was, I just thought, you know, my odds of being able to get an arrow in one of those bulls is pretty slim. And at that point, I was probably hearing you in my ear saying, hey, what are you doing, man? You can't kill a bull in that stuff with a bow and arrow. It's too thick. But I spent some time there, and I talked to my dad, and I just thought, you know, this isn't I can't kill a bull there. So we ended up actually going back to the first area that I'd scouted and hunted. And I think I hunted, I think I killed that bull on a Saturday night, a Saturday evening actually. But what happened is I glassed up a bull in the morning, and he was down in a canyon, and I threw everything in my backpack, and I headed off down in there, and I waited for him to come out, and he didn't come out that evening, and I spent the night down in there, and during the night, the wind kicked up, and it started blowing, and I was actually just bivvied out in a patch of standing dead ponderosa. And about 10:30 at night, the wind kicked up, and I could hear all these ponderosa around me, you know, creaking, and I could hear them moving in the wind, and I got a little bit nervous, and I actually had a big tree come down within about 50 yards of me in the middle of the night, and I thought, you know, this isn't no good. So I threw everything in my pack, and I packed out in the middle of the night to the top of the ridge, and the wind blew all night long. And the next morning I'd set my alarm to get up, and I just about didn't get out of bed. I thought, this is pointless, you know, all this wind, there's not going to be anything up moving. But I thought, you know, I'm here, so I might as well. So I did get up, and I walked off to the edge just to look down into the bottom of the canyon, because I figured if there was anything up moving, or if I was going to see any elk, it would be down in one of these canyons deep in the bottom where they'd be out of the wind. So
whether you are interested in elk, deer, antelope, bighorn sheep, or moose, Western Hunter and Elk Hunter magazines will bring the adventure to your mailbox. These publications feature articles on the finest hunting gear, tips and tactics from experienced hunters, field judging trophies, glassing techniques, calling strategies, and much more. To become a more knowledgeable and skilled hunter, subscribe today. Go to westernhunter.net/jscott and enter your email address for a chance to win a $1,500 credit towards any Swarovski product. Have you guys heard about PhoneScope? PhoneScope is a privately held company that makes custom-molded, precisely engineered smartphone digiscoping adapters. Photographing wildlife has never been easier. Take digiscoping photos and videos from your smartphone and share them with your friends. PhoneScope stands behind their product with a 100% money-back guarantee. PhoneScope is the future of digiscoping. Get yours now. Use the JScott16 promo code and receive 10% discount on all purchases. Check them out at PhoneScope, that's PhoneSkope.com, or on Instagram at PhoneScope.
I climbed out to the end of this ridge and I looked down into the bottom, and just like the first day, within the first minute and a half, I saw this bull laying in the bottom of the canyon, and I had a real strong wind, probably 20, 30 miles an hour blowing straight from him to me, and he was probably only, half a mile, and I just thought, here's my chance. I couldn't even hear my own footsteps. The wind was blowing so hard, and, it's blowing right at me. So I piled off into this canyon and went up the bottom of the wash and ended up working my way up on his same level. I had the wind perfect. I worked in on him. He got up and he was feeding away from me, and I got in tight to 21 yards, and just like you were saying, that vegetation is so thick, I didn't have a clear lane to shoot, and the wind got a little bit swirly, and I saw him pick his nose up, and he kind of started to turn, and he turned, and he took, he ran probably 3 or 4 steps back to my left, and when he started to run, I came to full draw, and as soon as he broke out into a little clearing, I just cow called to stop him, and I had to guess the yardage, and I knew he was pretty close. I guess I think I shot him for 35 yards, and I hit him perfect, hit him really well, right behind the shoulder. And I watched him, go down into the bottom of the canyon. He started up the other side, and he was starting up the other side. I could see he was, pumping blood, and I could see the arrow. I could see probably 10 inches of the arrow sticking out. So I knew I had decent penetration. Certainly not as good as you'd hope. But I watched him go up, and, I kept thinking he's going to go down, and it was like 3-4 minutes went by, and then what he ended up doing is actually turn around, he backed himself into this big manzanita. And, I debated on whether to tell you this story, how it actually happened, but I think it's important because, things don't always happen exactly like you think they do, or like you'd like them to, right?
Right.
So what happened is, with that first arrow, I ended up getting one lung and one liver and part of the liver. And I don't know if you've guided a lot, Jay. You've hunted a lot yourself, but you hear people say, "Oh, I got one lung." How long can they go? Well, they can go a long time.
Yeah, I say yuck. When you hit one lung,
right.
It's a bad deal.
Right. So I watched that bull for 4 hours. I didn't want to bump him. So I watched him, and he eventually did come out, and he laid down, just below.
Well, the good news is you had your eyes on him, right?
That's it. Yeah. And I didn't want to bump him. I could see him the whole time. And, I knew at that point that I was probably going to have to get another arrow in him. But I just didn't want to push him. I didn't want to risk losing him. So I just waited him out, and he did come out, and he laid down, and his luck would have it, he bedded down facing, dead away from me. And he was only 169 yards from me. He was just right across the canyon, but I was able to sneak in and then put another arrow in him and finish him off. But it ended up being an all-day event. After I shot him, he turned and he wheeled and went down into the canyon and then died. But I experienced it all, highs and lows.
I think one of the things that people can take away from that trail is I've been in those same situations, and I think the hard part is when he's at 169 yards, he's bedded and he's facing away, but you still are like, dang, I still want to keep my eyes on him. What if he's going to bed and just all of a sudden get up and I get over there? Were you able to, as you could move closer, did you ever have a point where your eyes, where you couldn't see the bull, or could you always maintain contact with the bull?
No, there was probably, I went real slow and took my time because I wanted to make sure I finished him. And there was a period of time, probably, 10 minutes there where I couldn't see him. And, it was nerve wracking. I knew he was hurting pretty good. The closer I got, I could actually hear him. So I knew he was hit one lung at least. And, it was nerve wracking, but I figured if I just took my time and the way he was bedded and, the amount of time that he'd spent just standing there, I figured if I just went real slow, was real methodical about it, that I could finish the job, so.
And it's a beautiful bull, probably what, a 340 class
Yeah.
bull?
Yeah, he's about a 340 bull. To be honest, I haven't put a tape on him ever. I just was real happy to get him, and yeah, he's probably about a 340 bull, I would say.
Nice, that's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about gear. I hear you staying overnight and bivvying and what have you. Just run down briefly and kind of through your gear, and let's hear what you're using.
Okay. So for bow and arrow, I've been a gold tip arrow guy forever. I've always shot gold tip pro hunters. Big fan of those. Broadheads, I know a lot of people like the mechanical. I'm more of a fixed blade fan, and I've always shot slick trick broadheads. Had really good luck with them. For bow, I'm a little bit different in that I'm shooting a Hoyt target bow, which is it's a Hoyt Pro Edge Elite, which for me it fits me real good. It's 35 inches axle to axle. It's got a 7-inch brace. It's got a shoot through riser, which is kind of weird for some people to think about bow hunting. It didn't impact me at all. I was able to slide my broadhead right through it. I just love how that bow holds. It just settles, and I just love that bow. It just suits me, and my, the geometry of it just suits me real well. So that's the bow I'm running. Backpack, I'm running a Kafaru duplex frame with, I think for that hunt, I was running a Timberline 1 pack. Bivy, I'm a bivy guy. I like bivvies. I like the fact that I can throw my sleeping bag inside it in my pack, and I can just throw it out and be in bed in a few minutes. So I run Outdoor Research Advanced Bivy, which is basically just a Gore-Tex sack. For a sleeping bag, I think I'm running a Marmot Helium, and I've had it for several years. I've had really good luck with it. I know there's a lot of good bags out there, but that one just seems to work for me. It's 15-degree bag, so never too cold, and it seems to work. If I open it up even early season, I can still stay not too hot. But as far as camouflage, I'm running Sitka gear. This year, especially for that hunt, I ended up buying a pair of their insulated, the Kelvin light pant. I love those things. Those are probably my favorite pieces of clothing this year. Just have an insulated pair of pants is awesome to, if you're sitting early morning or evening glassing, just to throw those on and sit there, really kept me warm. And then also at night, if it got real cold, you could throw those on inside your bag. I sleep cold, seems like, so I'm always layering up. But what else?
Shoes,
yeah. I'm running Hanwag. Yeah, I think it's the the Alaska GTX, I think, or I think that's the model I'm running. But I love those boots. I've had probably every pair of boot you can think of in the last 10 years, and these just seem to fit my foot the best. So yeah, I have bad right ankle just from playing basketball in high school, and I got to have a mountain boot. So I'm running a stiff soled boot with a rubber end and thick leather. So yeah, that's
awesome.
That's about it.
What about optics and tripod, spotting scope? What do you use there?
Yeah, so I'm running it's a carbon fiber tripod made by a company called Faisal. It's really tall, which suits me. I'm about 6'2", so I like something that can get up and high enough that I can glass from it standing up if need be.
This is a tripod I haven't heard of. How do you spell it?
Fisol. Yeah,
okay.
Faisal. Yeah, I was looking for a tripod. I did a lot of research on tripods. I was looking for something that would, go up real high for me. It's got a center post and it's got 2 leg sections. And And this one was the lightest for the height and then also the diameter of the legs, because I was wanting something, fairly sturdy. So it's what works for me. I've been running it for probably 3 years. I've been really, really happy with it. So I run that
carbon fiber, or what's the make on it?
Yep, carbon fiber.
Okay.
Yep. So I've been running it. I run for optics, some 10x42 Leica Ultravids. I've had those for probably, I think, 14 years. The first year my wife and I were married, I convinced her to let me use my tax return on a pair of binoculars. So
I love it.
Yeah. I told her
instead of that vacation she was dreaming about, that she got a pair of Leica binoculars. I love it.
Yeah, I told her, it's a lifetime investment, and I'm still running them, so I'm not totally wrong. But
good for you. Good for you. If it works, keep using them.
Yeah, and I love them. They're good. They're good glass. For a spotting scope, I'm just running a 65 millimeter Vortex Razor HD scope, and then I also this year purchased a pair of Swarovski SLC 15-56s. So I ran those. I didn't find that I used them a whole lot down there in Arizona, just because that terrain we were hunting was, a burn, and those elk stuck out like sore thumbs. So a lot of the time I was using the larger field of view 10-42s. But I think come this year, when I'm hunting deer, mule deer, something like that, those 15s are going to come in handy.
Yeah, those 15s are sure nice, clear and crisp, great binocular.
Yeah,
for sure.
They're amazing glass for sure.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations on a great hunt and proving me wrong, and coming down and shooting a great bull, and quite honestly having a good experience, and probably would have killed that 370 type bull that those other guys did. It just happened to be their day, and sometimes the sun shines on you and sometimes it shines on someone else. So it was nice that you were able to be happy for your fellow hunter. I want to jump over and talk about Utah. And specifically I want you to kind of go through some of the what quote unquote the best units for elk in Utah, kind of a breakdown from habitat and location and tag numbers and quality of bulls and what have you. If you could go through some of the top units.
Okay. Yeah. I think probably for me the best units are probably it's those units, and you could go back and do look at the research, but you're looking at those units that haven't seen major fluctuations of permit over the last 10 years or so. For me, I'm looking at units like the Beaver. I think the Beaver.
Hey, Trail. Yeah. Let me interrupt you here for just a second. Let's take a quick break, and then I'll get right back into it.
Guys, thanks for listening to episode 114. Be sure to tune in to part 2 with Trail Kreitzer on episode 115.